All Rise, the new Rise. Today, Orbea have released not one, but two new Orbea Rises. Stay tuned for more info. Hi folks, I'm Jason and welcome back to ebike-centre. It's been a little while since we've posted any content, but we're back and we've got more content than ever. And today we're starting off with the brand new Orbea Rise, or to be more precise, two new Orbea Rises. We've got the Orbea Rise SL and the Orbea Rise LT. So, what's an Orbea Rise SL and what's an Orbea Rise LT, you may ask? Well, it's quite simple. The SL stands for super light and the LT stands for long travel. To make it very simple, the RS SL is pretty much the same as the old RS. It's a 140mm sort of cross-country trail bike. You can do a little bit of more aggressive stuff as well, but it's just a really good all-rounder, but it's much, much lighter than your average bike. And as a result, the traditional Rise had a 60 Nm motor and had the option of either a 360 battery or a 540 battery, which obviously aided in the fact it was that much lighter. However, the big thing about the old Orbea Rise was the RS tuning on the Shimano EP8 or EP6 motor. The logic behind that was it gave you a much more natural riding feel. You had to work a bit harder, you needed to ride it at a higher, more natural cadence to get what you needed out of it. But as a result, you got this middle ground between your standard bike, your organic analog bike, and your full fat e-bike. So they hit this sort of middle ground bang on in the middle, and it was, to use the cliche, it was a bit of a game changer. But they've come back this time with two new models. So like I said, the new SL is very much not the same, obviously. It is a newer model, it's a different frame, different characteristics, but in essence, it is the same bike with an upgrade. A fairly significant upgrade on the motor, and I'll get back to that later. In addition, they brought out the LT, which stands for long travel. And as you might expect, it has more travel than the SL version. It's got 160mm rather than being 140. So this takes it from your cross-country trail bike into the enduro market. So it's going to be competing with the big, full, more punchy, bigger bikes, such as like its own cousin, the Wild, or the Rails, or the Levos. It's got that bit more travel to take a bit more of a pounding, a bit more of a beating. So those are the main differences in terms of the actual bike. But in terms of the motor, the batteries, there's quite a few new upgrades that make this bike very different to the previous Rise. Not ride, but it is a ride, different ride and Rise, but we'll go from there. The traditional Rise had the RS tuned EP8 motor, then the EP6 motor on the alloy versions, but both of them being RS tuned, they had 60 Nm instead of 85 Nm. The motors themselves required a lot more cadence from the rider in order to get the maximum assistance out of the motor. This gave two different things. It gave a really natural riding feel. It also gave better range from the batteries. But this time round, the motor has two options in it. It has the standard RS tune, but it's also got the RS Plus. So that's the same on the SL version and on the LT version. The motor has the ability to go from 54 Nm, which is in the normal RS tune, so very similar to the old 60 Nm. The second option takes you up to 85 Nm, so it gives you the full whack that the EP8 motor has to offer. So this suddenly makes both bikes not just your mid-powered e-bike, they make them a full-fat e-bike as well, but with the big advantage of being significantly lighter. The carbon versions, which are being released first, these bikes are going to be sub 20 kilos, so quite a big difference to any other full-powered e-bike out there on the market. Similar, I suppose, to the lightest weight Wilds that are out there, and there are obviously a few other manufacturers that are hitting that sub 20 category, but not with any great degree, and there's very few options out there. But this Rise is going to be, in the lightest guys, I've been told, we're talking 16 kilos, and that is a big difference. That is getting to the top end of an analog bike. A big, more heavy enduro alloy bike is going to be pushing towards 16 kilos, so it is very, very light. Now, moving on to the batteries. This time round, rather than doing the 360 battery and a 540 watt-hour battery, we're now talking a 420 watt-hour battery and a 630 watt-hour battery. So both of these batteries are permanently in the frame, as they were in the previous Rise, and that helps the bike be significantly lighter. By removing the removable nature of the battery, you can make a frame significantly lighter, because essentially if you cut a great big hole in a frame to get a battery in and out, you need to strengthen it elsewhere. That extra strengthening adds weight, and as a result, you get a heavier bike. So by removing all that, the Rise not only is lighter, but it's also stiffer than a bike that's got a great big hole in the frame. So it helps obviously with the riding characteristics of the bike. This time the batteries are both bigger. So if you think about a 630 watt-hour battery, That, only a couple of years ago, was the biggest battery a Bosch-powered bike could have fitted to it. So we're talking full e-bike power, not just a medium-range battery. You're talking full power. The only bigger Bosch battery than that is a 750 watt. Admittedly, I know there are other bikes out there that have got 800 watt, 900 watt, but a lot of people, when you start adding watts, you add grams to the bike. Bikes get heavier. So Orbea have gone in with this 630, which I think, to be fair, is a pretty good sized battery for a lightweight bike. Admittedly, this isn't going to be the 16 kilo bike. This is going to be 18 to 20 kilos if you're getting the bigger battery in there. But still, for that amount of power and that range of battery now, it's a pretty good option. In addition, the Rises have always had a range extender. The range extender is going to be out for this one as well. So you're taking a 630 battery, you're going to add a range extender, which I'm going to presume is, again, about 250 watts. So suddenly you've got an 850, get my maths right, 880 watt hour battery, which is massive, frankly, and it's still a very light bike. And you've got the option of riding it in 2 modes. So you've got your lightweight mode, where you're getting the RS mode, which can get you 54 Newton meters, and you've got this 85 Newton meter option. So you can either go for range or you can go for power. The bike gives you the option of either. So moving on to the frame design itself, if you're looking initially at the picture, it is quite obviously an Orbea Rise. It looks very similar to the traditional Rise. However, it has got an additional strengthening rod that runs through the center triangle. So actually it's starting to give some sort of a very similar silhouette to the Specialized Levo in that regard. I'm presuming from that extra strengthening rod they have increased the stiffness, which they tell us they have, by 8% in the main triangle and by 14% in the rear triangle as well. So we've got a stiffer bike than previously, so that will aid the handling characteristics. In addition, as I mentioned to start with, there are only carbon versions available for now. There will be an alloy version coming out in the near future. I say near future, I'm pretty sure we're going to be talking actually in 2025, but there will be a handful of these carbon Rises about this year. There's not going to be many. Like, to give you an example, we've got some on order. The earliest one we've got coming in is currently saying January. So although it's a 2025 bike that's being released in 2024, it's likely that you won't see this bike until 2025. If you're after a new bike for this summer, it's probably not going to be the one you're going to get your hands on. By all means, the 2024 version, which was originally released in 2021, I believe, or maybe 2020, is still an excellent bike. It's still an excellent option, and I don't doubt there'll be some very good deals to be had on it now that they've released that there's a new one coming. So yes, if you're going for one straight away, you probably won't get one. So have a think about that. But the new one is going to be very good. It's going to be expensive, but I would imagine excellent. So what models are there and when will I get one? Well, to start with, they're releasing 4 models. So they're going to be 2 in the Superlight and 2 in the LT. So the LT will offer you an M10, going up to the M Limited, and then you're going to go with the SL. They're doing an M10, and you're going up to the M Limited. So not M-Team, but M Limited, which is very confusing for me trying to remember all these. So you're talking at the moment, they're only releasing the top end stuff. For those of us that don't have quite that sort of disposable income, they may be unattainable for a little while until we see the alloy versions, which will no doubt follow. And also, I would expect an M10 down to M20, M30, based upon what we've seen in the past. So from speaking to Orbea, I have been told that they're going to keep running one of the old frame shapes. I don't know whether it's going to be an alloy or a carbon, most likely alloy. The 2024 model, which is the original Gen 1, and they're going to carry that running alongside the new version 2025 model for at least a year or so that there's an entry-level bike into the market for those that need it. So spec and battery-wise, as you'd expect, the M10 is going to be the lower end of the top end of their bikes that they're going to release at the moment. It's still going to be really well spec'd. Obviously, we're looking at Fox, we're looking at XT or XTR, and then at the top end, we're going to be looking at obviously a Kashima coat. We're going to be talking Di2, XTR, all the best stuff. The 2 battery options. So this is the big bit. Who is this bike for? Well, we covered it slightly already. The Rise SL is going to really hit the standard Rise riders. So those that want mid-power, they want light, they want something that feels very, very natural. They want as close as they can to an analog bike, but with that extra oomph from an e-bike motor. They want to cover more distance, but still feel like they're riding a normal bike. It's going to be really bridging that gap between the full-fat riders and the mid-power riders. Orbea have given us sort of a diagram covering like where this bike sits in their hierarchy, and it does certainly, the LT bleeds very much into where the Wild sits. The Wild is more powerful, although it's 85 Newton meters. The way the motor is tuned, you get way more out of the Bosch motor with less effort. So if you want less effort from the bike, then maybe start looking at going for a wild rather than a rise. But if you want something that's got that oomph when you want it, but you have to work a bit harder for it, then the Rise would sit there for you. So ironically, this bike will start competing a bit with the Wild. So there are going to be riders that would have bought a Wild that might now say, actually, I want a Rise, because I want that little bit more agility, I want something that's a bit lighter, I don't need the battery to come out. I think Orbea have done a really good job here. If you don't need the battery to come out, I feel like most people will go down this Rise route. So finally, what do I think? Is it going to be a hit? Well, yes, is the simple answer to that. I think it's going to be a huge hit based upon the previous Rise. Unless they've got something catastrophically wrong with the riding geometry, this bike is going to suit so many different people. I think it's, unless obviously you're looking for a folding bike or a low step bike, this is going to be the e-bike for pretty much everyone. Big caveat, obviously you need to have some significant wonga to start with if you're going to try and buy these ones, but there will undoubtedly be some cheaper ones coming through in the near future, nearish future. But yes, it's going to be huge. It's going to be probably one of the biggest selling bikes possibly ever. I'm making a very bold statement there. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think I will be. So, Orbea, based upon what you've been doing over the last few years, I think you've knocked it out of the park again. Well done. As always, thank you all very much for well, good. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching this video. We really appreciate it here at ebike-centre. We've really enjoyed being back in front of the camera, actually. It's been a little while, so thank you for staying tuned and for subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, you need to subscribe. That sounds a bit aggressive, but no, you really do need to subscribe. And like I say, if we don't see you in store, we look forward to seeing you in the next video. Cheers.
That's a very bold statement.
It was quite a bold statement on the Rise. I could be totally wrong and people are going to start saying, well, you said it was going to be the biggest bike ever, biggest e-bike ever, and I could be totally wrong. But I honestly don't think I'm going to be.
No, if you're right.
And if I'm right, I'm going to get to say to everyone on the day it launched, this is going to be one of the biggest e-bikes ever. And I'm right.
You're clairvoyant.
Clairvoyant. She sounds nice.